Hey! Welcome to my cozy corner of the internet. This is Nephilim VA bringing you the third chapter of Inheritance, written by A is for Amy 71 on AO3. I am hoping this chapter has more wholesomeness than the last chapter. Izuku deserves the very best. This fanfiction is for mature audiences, with canon-typical violence and a trigger warning for major character death. If that isn't your style, then I recommend Shades of Green, which is written by Maybe It's Friendly on AO3. It can be found on my channel. Canon Divergence is the name of the game and indulges the what-ifs of Midoriya Izuku having a quirk. With that being said, the chapter summary is as followed. Izuku makes new friends, gets a new babysitter and a new quirk. Then he learns more about why. Keep an eye out in this chapter for a little cameo by someone you might recognize. Now I implore you to sit back and relax whilst I read to you. Chapter 3. Izuku's new school was nice. He made some new friends and flourished without the added stress of everyone knowing that his mother had recently died and treating him differently because of it. The days were long because sometimes his dad didn't get off of work until after dark, but the staff were nice. He met a girl with pink hair and funny eyes that was always hogging the Lego set, but she was nice, if she happened to notice you. The other kids didn't make a big deal about Izuku having two quirks, and it was easy to fit in and relax in a way he hadn't been able to at his old school. A few weeks later, Izuku's dad finally took him to see the same doctor that had told him that he didn't have a quirk, to find out why he now had two. Izuku didn't see why they needed to see the doctor about it, but his dad said he wanted to make sure it was nothing to worry about. Dr. Tsubasa had been very surprised to find that Izuku had manifested a quirk at all, and expressed sympathy at the death of Izuku's mother. He questioned them about the circumstances surrounding each manifestation, and made some notes, but in the end he didn't have much to add on to what they already knew. "His case is pretty unique," the doctor had told Izuku's dad. "Usually when a person has more than one quirk, it's either because the child got each of his parents' quirks, or something linked to them. It would make sense, for example, if he was able to breathe fire, and then pull it back to himself, that sort of thing. Telekinesis and turning transparent are completely different and unrelated to each other. There's no one on either side of your family who can disappear or phase through objects or anything like that." "Not as far as I know. Inko's parents passed away in an accident when she was in her teens, and my own parents are gone as well. I don't know much more family history beyond that." Izuku sat, incredibly bored, while the doctor nodded and made more notes. The office was a bit cold and he shivered a bit, hoping that they were almost done. "From what you've told me, there doesn't seem to be anything worth worrying about. Nature sometimes produces an outlier, and Izuku-kun is otherwise a healthy boy. Unless anything else develops, I don't think you need to worry too much. If something does develop, please contact me right away. From a clinical standpoint, his case is really quite interesting." His dad had seemed relieved to know that there was nothing particularly wrong, and dropped Izuku off at school to finish out the day while he went back to work. The peace only lasted a couple of hours before something strange happened.
"What do you think about my new baby?"
Mei asked Izuku as she presented her latest Lego creation for inspection. It was a real working claw that she had rigged up with some rubber bands and levers and wheels from a huge bucket of Lego pieces that were scattered around the area. Izuku looked up from his own creation, which was a simple car and not very interesting.
That's amazing, Mei-chan. But why is this one blue? It should be red like the rest.
Izuku tapped the odd blue plastic brick in the middle of the claw, and it instantly changed from blue to red to match the rest of the creation.
How did you do that?
Mei demanded, putting her hands on her hips and staring down at him. Izuku shrugged.
I just touched it and it changed color. Do it again. Change this one red too,
she demanded in a bossy tone. Izuku touched the brick she held out to him and blinked when it changed from yellow to red.
Make this one black,
she said, shoving another plastic brick at him. He did. Other kids began to gather around and make innocent demands too.
Turn this green. Can you make this purple?
One of the teachers came over to see what was going on and was surprised to see Izuku changing classroom toys to different colours. She called another one of the teachers over. Izuku? The head teacher asked, kneeling down next to him. Were you able to do this before? Izuku shook his head, but was grinning at his newfound popularity. Your daddy took you to the doctor today to find out about your other quirks, right? She asked, sounding curious. He nodded.
The doctor said, don't worry about it.
Did he see you change things to a different colour? She asked.
He
said, shaking his head.
I couldn't do it then, just now.
The two teachers looked at each other with raised eyebrows. They took him into another small room where they asked him to change a few things to different colours. He was able to change plastic things and crayons, but not fabric, rocks, metal or glass. He couldn't change skin or hair either. There was no detail work when the colour changed. The entire object changed regardless of how many colours it had been before. They made some notes and told him he could go back and play, but not to change any more toys without permission. No one seemed upset that he now had 3 quirks, though they did tell him he wasn't supposed to use any of them without permission. That was the rule for everyone. When his dad picked him up later, he asked him how he felt and questioned him a bit about his new quirk, but he didn't seem too upset either. Mostly he seemed confused. I'll call Dr. Tsubasa tomorrow and see what he has to say, his dad said. 2 days later, Izuku was back in the doctor's office, and this time it wasn't as easy and boring as just sitting there while the adults talked. This time, there was a needle that sucked some of his blood out, and x-rays of his whole body, and noisy machines in big tunnels, and all kinds of people poking and prodding at him for a really long time. By the time his dad was allowed to take him home, he was tired and cranky. It didn't help when the doctor had said that they would need to return for the test results in a few days before he could tell them anything. At dinner that night, which his dad had ordered to be delivered, his father looked almost as tired and cranky as Izuku did. It's been a long day, huh? He asked Izuku, as he transferred a portion of fried rice onto Izuku's plate. Izuku nodded and poked at his food, moodily. I might have some good news, though, Saki, my assistant, thinks she might have found someone to come and look after us. I'm going to meet them tomorrow, and if I like them, then you'll get to meet them, and we'll decide together, okay? Izuku wasn't sure what to think about that.
Can they cook?
He asked. The food on his plate wasn't bad, but he was tired of eating out of cartons and paper wrappers. That was one of the biggest requirements on the list, his dad promised solemnly.
Okay.
3 days later, Izuku was playing in his room when the doorbell rang, and his father called to him. He ran out to the living room to see a young man standing there, wearing a high school uniform. The high school guy waved at him with a friendly smile, and Izuku waved back shyly. Izuku, this is Tanaka-san. He's a senior in high school and wants to be the one looking after us a while. Come on in and meet him. Izuku came over and politely greeted Tanaka as he'd been taught to. Tanaka knelt down on the carpet in front of Izuku and smiled. I'm pleased to meet you, Izuku-kun, he said in a nice voice. Do you have any questions for me? Izuku looked questioningly at his father, who nodded in encouragement. His dad had told him that it was up to him to decide if he liked the person that wanted the job, since Izuku would be spending the most time with him.
Are you a good cook?
Izuku asked first of all. I think so, Tanaka answered confidently. My mom taught me how. My speciality is Hamburg steak, though I can make lots of other stuff. Izuku nodded thoughtfully. He liked Hamburg steak.
Do you have a quirk?
Was the next question. Izuku was always interested in people's quirks. As soon as he learned to write better, he was gonna make a book about them. I do, but it's not terribly impressive, Tanaka said. Watch. The young man pulled a little bottle of soap bubbles from his bag and held it up. What's your favourite animal? He asked.
Octopus!
Izuku said, just naming one off the top of his head. He didn't really have a favourite. Tanaka took out the bubble wand and blew through the soapy ring, and to Izuku's amazement, a bubble shaped like an octopus floated out of it and into the air. It hovered for a while before it popped, and Izuku clapped his hands.
That's so cool! Can you do any shape?
Mostly, Tanaka said, but animals are the easiest.
Wow!
Any other questions? He asked, tucking the bottle away in his bag again.
Do you like heroes?
I love heroes, especially All Might, Tanaka said, scoring big points with Izuku.
Are you married?
Izuku asked. He didn't have a particular reason for asking, other than that he didn't really know what he should be asking beyond what he already had. Tanaka laughed. It was a nice laugh. No, I don't even have a girlfriend, he answered cheerfully. Most high schoolers don't get married until after they grow up some more. Izuku looked at his dad.
I like him. He's good. Do you have any questions?
I've already asked him lots and lots of questions before, his dad said with a small smile. I had to make sure he could do the job and be on time and everything, you know?
Good thinking,
Izuku said with a firm nod. This seemed to amuse both men. I think you've got the job if you're comfortable with it, his dad told Tanaka. Thank you, sir. I'm sure Izuku-kun and I will get along just fine. So, Izuku, tomorrow your dad will take you to school, and then I'll pick you up from school when I'm done at my school. And I'll bring you home and stay with you until your dad gets home. How does that sound?
Great!
Izuku said, bouncing on the balls of his feet a little. Things were looking up. When Izuku was taken to the doctor to get the results of all of his tests, he was glad when they promised him that he wouldn't have to have any more blood taken or lay in any machines. He sat next to his dad as the doctor explained. The test didn't show any stress to his system, which is the most important thing, he said as he looked over the papers in Izuku's file. The human body isn't normally equipped to handle multiple quirks, and there can be some backlash when more than one manifests. But there's no sign of it in Izuku. I have a theory about him that I would like to test, but I will have to do a small amount of research and wait for the opportunity first. What kind of theory? Izuku's dad asked. Izuku had whimpered a little and scooted over to hold his dad's arm at the mention of another test. I believe that your son actually has 4 quirks, not 3. Explain, was the only thing his dad said, even as he put a protective arm around Izuku's shoulders. From everything you've told me, each one of his quirks he demonstrated has manifested after he spent some time in hospital. Dr. Tsubasa pointed out, ticking them off with his fingers. The first was right after the train accident, and the second was after you took him to get stitches removed at the hospital in Taiwan, and the third just after an appointment here with me. Yes, but he didn't get a new one when he was here for all those tests a few days ago, his dad pointed out. Izuku didn't understand what they were talking about. What did being in a hospital have to do with getting quirks? No, but I checked the records, and no one died here during the time period that he was here for tests. Izuku looked at his dad, who had gone very still and quiet. Someone did pass away in this hospital during the time of the appointment after he received the color-changing quirk. Dr. Tsubasa continued, and they had a color-changing quirk. Oh shit! Izuku's dad said, earning him a look of shock from Izuku.
Dad, you said a bad word!
Sorry, little man. Please excuse my bad language, his dad said. I think you see where I'm going with this, the doctor said. But perhaps we should talk more about it privately. Yes, of course, I wouldn't want him to. The doctor picked up the phone and asked the nurse to come in. She arrived within a minute, and Izuku was surprised when the doctor asked her to take him to get an ice cream in the cafeteria, while he spoke privately with the patient's father. Izuku's dad told him it was fine and that he should go with the nice lady for a few minutes. He would come and get him after he talked to the doctor. Izuku slipped off the chair and took the nurse's offered hand. She was a nice lady who said she had a little girl just Izuku's age. She chatted with him as she took him down a couple long hallways to a little place that was kind of like a restaurant and got him a cup of ice cream that came with a little wooden spoon to scoop it out with. He shivered a bit as the ice cream made him feel cold, but it was tasty. She got one for herself as well, and they shared a small table in a busy place until Izuku's dad showed up and said it was time to get him to school. On the drive back in the car that his dad got just a couple weeks ago from his company, Izuku waited for his dad to say something, when his dad didn't really talk at all, Izuku prompted him.
"Did the doctor find out something bad about me?"
he asked. "No, not bad, just confusing," his dad told him. His dad smiled, but it didn't look like a real smile. "He's still trying to figure things out."
"He said I needed another test."
"Not the kind you had before," his dad said. "I'm not convinced you even need that test, so I'm going to wait and see. Don't worry about it, okay?"
"Okay,"
Izuku said, unconvinced. His dad dropped him off at school just before lunchtime, and things were fine for all of 5 minutes. The children were all served a tray with grilled fish, mixed veggies, and sweet potato miso soup. Hana-chan got upset at this for some reason and began to cry. She was a bit of a crybaby over very small things, and no one could figure out why until Izuku spoke up.
"She's sad because she wanted fried tofu for lunch,"
he told the teacher. "She told you she wanted fried tofu?" she asked him.
"No, she just does." "Sorry, Hana-chan, you have to eat fish today,"
he said consolingly.
"Maybe your mama can make you fried tofu for dinner."
Hana-chan sniffled but stopped crying.
"She makes the best fried tofu. I want to eat it right now."
Hana was eventually coaxed into sitting down with everyone else, and lunch could continue. The head teacher came to sit by Izuku, as she did a lot of days, and started to talk to him while they ate. "How did you know that Hana-chan wanted fried tofu for lunch?" she asked curiously. Izuku shrugged.
"I don't know, I just could tell. Takashi wishes he could have daifuku right now,"
Izuku said, pointing to one of the boys at another table.
"You want a Kit Kat."
She blinked at him in surprise, but listened to him tell her all about what each person sitting around him wanted to eat. The kids nearby confirmed what he guessed, saying things like,
"Yeah, curry would be really good. I wish we were having that today." And, "He's right. I like the other miso soup better."
Izuku finished his own lunch without complaint. He liked the school lunches most of the time, but Tanaka-san hadn't been lying when he said that his Hamburg steak was very good. He preferred his babysitter's food over the school food. Tanaka-san picked him up from school, just like he did every day now. They walked the short distance to the bus stop, where they got on and rode for 10 minutes to another stop that was a 5-minute walk to the Midoriya's apartment. Tanaka-san made him a fruit sandwich for his snack, cutting it into neat triangles on his plate. While Izuku ate, Tanaka took care of the laundry from the day before and vacuumed the living room and bedrooms. Izuku climbed on a stool near the counter after that and helped Tanaka-san prepare veggies and things for cooking. Izuku washed the rice and helped dry dishes when they got washed. Tanaka talked to Izuku while he prepared items for breakfast that could be easily warmed up in the morning. Izuku liked hearing about Tanaka-san's day at school, as he explained about how his class was planning what they should do for their culture festival. It sounded like a lot of fun. Izuku liked how Tanaka-san didn't treat him like a little kid, and asked him questions and explained things to him when he asked. If he didn't know the answer to something Izuku wanted to know, he would look it up on his phone, and they would learn about it together. After the chores were finished, Tanaka-san checked Izuku's bag for the folder that they got sent home every day with any notes from the teacher. This was something he checked on, to be sure he didn't need to prepare anything that might be needed the next day at school, like a smock for painting, or anything like that. Izuku-kun, Tanaka-san asked after reading the note the teacher had written. Can you tell me what I want to eat right now?
A spicy tuna roll!
Izuku immediately supplied from where he was sitting, writing in his notebook.
With extra wasabi!
Tanaka-san laughed at this answer, which puzzled Izuku because it wasn't really funny. Do you know what your dad wants for dinner? He asked next. Izuku thought about it for a minute, then shrugged.
I don't know. He likes most of the stuff you make.
Very cool, was all Tanaka-san said to that. They ate dinner together, though it wasn't a spicy tuna roll because they didn't have the ingredients. It was still very tasty, and they saved a big plate for Izuku's dad when he got home. After dinner, Tanaka-san supervised Izuku's bath and then blow-dried his hair for him before helping him to get ready for bed. By then, Izuku's eyes were drooping and he fell asleep almost immediately after a long, strange day. Izuku woke up in the morning to find his father already awake and dressed, warming breakfast in the microwave when Izuku came into the kitchen. Good morning, his dad said when he saw Izuku come in and sit down at the table. Breakfast'll be ready in just a minute. Izuku already knew that there would be rolled omelette, salad and rice with instant miso soup. He had helped Tanaka-san prepare it after all. I talked to your teacher yesterday, his father said, setting a glass of milk on the table in front of him. She says you have an interesting new talent. Izuku looked at him, feeling puzzled.
I do?
It was his dad's turn to look puzzled. She said you were telling her all about what everyone wanted to eat for lunch yesterday. Naokun said that you were right about what he wanted to eat yesterday, too.
Who's Naokun?
That's Tanaka's name, his dad supplied. Can you tell me what I want right now?
Coffee,
Izuku said.
With cream, and one of those fancy rolls with jam on it.
I'll be damned, his dad said.
Dad, that's a bad word!
Sorry, his dad chuckled. I was just surprised. You're absolutely right. I shouldn't say words like that. The rest of the day was normal, and nothing unusual happened for over a week. It wasn't until a Friday evening that his dad brought up his new talent again. I talked to Dr. Tsubasa, he told Izuku, as they enjoyed some shortbread that Tanaka-san's mother had sent to them via their son. He thinks that being able to tell what people want to eat is probably actually another quirk.
That would be a dumb quirk,
Izuku said with all of the disdain an almost 5-year-old could muster. Dr. Tsubasa said that someone who was at his hospital recently had the same quirk and they ran a pretty successful little restaurant. I'm sure it came in handy to know what the customers wanted there.
I guess that would make sense,
Izuku conceded.
But I don't want to be a cook. I want to be a hero, like All Might.
His dad poured himself some coffee from the small pot he'd made earlier and added some creamer. All Might, huh? Those are some pretty big shoes to fill. Though, at this rate, you're collecting quirks. Who knows? The last part was murmured, as if he wasn't really talking to Izuku. Izuku took a mental count. He had his mum's quirk, the see-through one, the colour-changing one, and now the food one.
Do I have 4 quirks now?
He asked. If your doctor is to be believed, then you might have 5.
5? What's the other one?
It's complicated, his dad told him with a soft sigh. He got the food on the table and sat down across from Izuku, sipping his coffee while Izuku picked up his chopsticks. Dr. Tsubasa thinks that you're getting quirks from people who die when you're nearby. Izuku frowned in concentration as he tried to make sense of what it might mean.
I don't get it,
he finally said. I don't really understand it either, kiddo, his dad said, setting down his mug.
Does that mean I stole people's quirks? Did I steal Mom's?
Izuku asked, suddenly feeling guilty and panicked. No, his father assured him quickly. You didn't steal anything, Zu. Your own quirk just kinda collects the quirks that get left behind when people die, and they don't need them anymore, I think. Izuku was very confused. Think of it like when you go to the beach and you pick up a shell, his dad explained. Where did that shell come from? Something used to live in there, right? Izuku thought about this, then nodded. Is collecting the shells a bad thing to do? His father asked.
No,
Izuku said, still considering the matter. Why not? His father prompted.
Because the things that lived in them are gone. They died and they don't need them anymore,
Izuku guessed. Right, so if a person dies and doesn't need their quirk anymore, how can it be a bad thing to collect it if you can? I know you're not doing it on purpose, it just seems to happen. It might become a bad thing if you get too many quirks because that's just too much for one person to handle. So far, you've gotten pretty small quirks that don't use up a lot of energy to use. Izuku thought he understood, but it was still complicated.
I have a quirk collection?
Exactly, his dad confirmed, seeming relieved. And we don't want that collection to get too big, just like you don't have room for every shell. Your body might not have the room for every quirk it wants to collect. We don't know what would happen to you if you got too many.
But I can't help it,
Izuku said seriously.
What do I do?
Well, for now, we're gonna keep you away from places that we know people die pretty often, like hospitals and nursing homes. Other than that, there isn't much else we can do. Except try to be careful, okay? Izuku wasn't sure how this was any kind of plan. He'd gotten 4 quirks from people without even knowing they died. How was he supposed to be careful? How often do people die anyway? It was a lot to think about. Another thing to think about is that you have a birthday coming up. You should think about how you'd like to celebrate. We can have a little party, or go out to eat, or see a movie. And you can pick out your own gift, too.
Really?
Izuku asked, allowing himself to be distracted from the conversation about death. Thank you so much for watching this video. I appreciate all the support you've given me. I guess this is the best time, if there is any, to give you a little life update. After having a COVID vaccine, I have been unable to have good mobility. So I've been adapting to that. And at the moment, it has had a bit of a effect. But hopefully, I will be getting back to normal soon enough. But recording this fanfiction has been very helpful for me, because it's something I can strive towards that doesn't require mobility. So, thank you. All credits go to the original creator of this fanfiction. A is for Amy71 on AO3. I'd highly appreciate it if you gave this video a like and you subscribe to the channel and you hit the notification bell to be notified of when I next upload. There is no pressure to do so though. Thank you for visiting my cozy corner of the internet. Keep growing my sunflowers. Mwah!